Gun violence feels like an American problem, but depending on where you are, that problem and solution can look very different.
The reality that I live in the inner city, where all the killing is going on, ain't nobody going and buy no guns. They ain't going, you ain't got to worry about them having a background check. They gonna just steal a gun, break in a house and get a gun or buy a gun from someone else.
Baltimore was one stop out of more than 70 organized by Everytown for Gun Safety, which joined with local activists calling for gun reform, starting with universal background checks.
Over the past 10 days, these murals have traveled different routes all across the country, totaling over 16,000 miles in 23 states, making 76 COVID-safe stops before today's finale.
Last week, President Biden introduced 6 executive actions to reduce gun violence, including banning so-called ghost guns and prioritizing community violence prevention in existing programs. Many Republicans immediately cried that this violated the Second Amendment. But Biden says he signed these limited actions because other gun safety measures, like one bill that would have expanded background check requirements, have stalled in the Senate. Do you think that lawmakers in Washington, D.C. realize what is happening in communities like Baltimore? Are they listening to you?
I believe a portion of them are, but I believe a lot of them are. And that's why, again, we're going to pound at their door. We have to be relentless until we get what we want, and they will listen, and they will hear us because we demand action now.
Mass shootings, defined as 4 or more people killed at once, get the bulk of media attention. But every few days, there are equivalents of that in places like Baltimore and Chicago. How has gun violence affected your life?
It's real crazy because we're hearing conversations about, the national movements to stop gun violence, background checks this, legislation this. But it's a real big disconnect to the point where we hearing the conversations going on, but it's almost like white noise. Like it don't really resonate to what's going on day to day as far as what's going on in the hoods.
Everytown's road trip ended right on the doorstep of the U.S. Capitol. We were in Baltimore earlier this week with some of the road trip tour. One of the local activists in Baltimore that we spoke with said, background checks are good. We support those, but that's not really going to curb the violence in our community. What's your response to someone like that?
So we know that background checks save lives in a lot of ways, not only by keeping guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, but it actually addresses gun trafficking, which is a big part of gun violence in city centers in this country. Just to give you an example, I started Moms Demand Action when I lived in Indiana, where there's no background check required on unlicensed gun sales. That's how so many guns end up in Chicago. Because you can just go 20 minutes over the border, load up a car with guns, no background check, go back over the border, those are invisible borders, go back into the state of Illinois and sell those guns, traffic those guns.
Now it's up to gun safety proponents in Congress to find the necessary 60 votes in the Senate. Do you think that Republicans really are going to vote for this background check bill?
I think we have a path forward. I think we have
What's the path?
Well, the path is a version of the House bill that requires background checks for every sale.
Who do you think your biggest allies right now are in terms of the Republicans on the Hill?
We're talking to everyone who will listen to us and talk to us.